Hello, everybody. Welcome to Into the Stands, where we return from Thanksgiving break. And starting off our show, we got to talk about the New York Giants as Tommy DeVito, the third string quarterback for the New York Giants. Really, I don't think any Giants fan predicted that he would be playing for this team to become starting quarterback. But here he is. Here we are at, I believe, was it 3-8? I want to say.
Something like that,
We're,
right?
we're now at 3-8.
3-8, as after a 10-6
Oh
win
no, I'm
against
sorry, 4-8.
4-8.
Well, you're the same record as the Jets, or
We're
like
4-7.
also one game difference.
As we are
That's
4-8
nuts.
after a close win against the New England Patriots. And I gotta say, listen, it's definitely listen. This is not the season we wanted as Giants fans. Not the season we expected, but I think we've at least gotten a little bit of hope because we've gotten some good play at our quarterback position now with DeVito. And overall, he's just an easy guy to root for, right? The North Jersey kid, Italian, right? Tommy Cutlets has become the nickname. He's overall. I mean, he's. I mean, he has a lot of bright spots. I mean, he's definitely surprised a lot of people. He's made it at least slightly fun to watch New York Giants football again. And I like what I'm seeing from Tommy DeVito. I'm excited to see what he's going to do on the Monday Night Football game against the Packers in 2 weeks. But hey, it's definitely we're definitely in a better position. I think after the Washington game, I was I think we all kind of just brushed it over, weren't very happy because this team is should be tanking. Okay? There's gonna be a lot of good young players at the draft, and that we're not gonna have the opportunity to draft if we keep winning. But now that we win this second game against the Patriots, I think it makes things feel a bit better and who knows? I mean, I know that the chances of making the playoffs aren't great, but you never know. And what I will say, at least, is I think the New York Giants may have found their quarterback too for the future.
Yeah, so just starting off here. I mean, the last time I was able to really fully go into a Giants game was that Jets game. And if you remember, obviously Tyrod Taylor was supposed to start that game. He did, and then he ended up getting hurt. And then Tommy DeVito came in, and he did not throw the football at all. For whatever reason, Brian Dable did not feel that, at least in that situation in the rain against that Jets defense, it was smart for Tommy DeVito to throw the ball. And the Giants really ended up losing that game because of that. I mean, they were almost a yard away from winning it. It would change a lot right now, but they ended up losing that game. So Tommy DeVito was supposed to just be the backup to Daniel Jones, but obviously a torn ACL. So just a lot of obstacles were in the way of this even happening in the first place. So Tommy DeVito getting sole control of the New York Giants, being an undrafted free agent rookie quarterback. I mean, looking at a guy who went to Syracuse, transferred eventually after that, went to Illinois. He even tried to I saw a request for another year of eligibility in college instead of going into the draft this season. But instead, he went into the draft, obviously not getting drafted. But listen, for an undrafted free agent rookie quarterback, those were two phenomenal performances. And, against Washington, obviously a lot of that was kind of set up by Sam Howell, turning the ball over frequently. But still, if you're a rookie quarterback getting 3 touchdowns, 246 yards, he was actually named the rookie of the week for that. I mean, it's phenomenal. It's a great game. And, for the Patriots too, he didn't really do any. I mean, he made a couple of great throws to Jalen Hyde. That's the one thing I will say, at least in terms of all the Giants quarterbacks so far. Tommy DeVito is getting Jalen Hyde involved, and that is huge because I still firmly believe he's the most talented receiver on this roster. And we saw it there. Jalen Hyde, his first career 100-yard game. He actually also just got voted Rookie of the Week. But overall, he had a touchdown pass, 191 yards. But he didn't lose you the football game. That's often a lot of the concern if you have a young quarterback with not a lot of experience going in there. He did not lose you the football game. And like I was saying, I remember one throw in particular. You're looking at a 3rd and 16. The Giants are deep in their own territory. Pressure's coming on to Tommy DeVito. And he makes a beautiful throw to the right sideline to Jalen Hyde. And once again, I did not think he was capable of doing this because at least from what the Giants first let on, they seemed to not think he was able to. But the legend of Tommy DeVito grows even more as the days go on. So out of the 3 quarterbacks that have played for the Giants this season, Daniel Jones, Tyrod Taylor, and Tommy DeVito, I feel like it is very fair to say that Daniel Jones has played the worst out of those 3 for what we've seen so far this season. And who would have expected that development, right? But from where we stand right now, it looks like Tommy DeVito is going to be the guy going forward. Brian Dable did not commit to him, though, for the Packers game, but I feel like you have to, seeing as how obviously he's a guy who, being at a younger age than Tyrod Taylor, maybe you could develop him even more. Maybe he could be your potential future backup going forward. Maybe if you're even lucky, you could get a starter out of him, though. That's a whole different topic. We have to give him some more games here. But the big, sticking point for a lot of Giants fans who aren't exactly very happy about this is, of course, the idea of tanking. Because we were last on the show, the Giants were 2-8 and were very much in prime position to get either Caleb Williams or Drake May. Now I believe they hold around the 7th or 8th pick in the draft. Now, obviously, you can't tell a professional group of NFL players to go lose games. That's just not how it works. These guys are professionals. They're going to go in there and they're going to compete. Brian Dable was just coach of the year last year. He's not going to turn around and then just command a tank job because he doesn't want to lose the locker room. He doesn't want to lose that culture. And, you know, the way, I mean, in the very least, because, I mean, there's still a mathematical chance to make the playoffs. I mean, it's possible the teams are going to play coming up here. The teams who are ahead of them, they have to have a great stretch. But, yeah, I mean, at least in a season where most looks like it's going to be lost, Tommy DeVito is a fun story. And that's really something that's huge for this fan base. You know, for a season that looks so bleak and so dreary, having a fun storyline is great. And, you know, just I talked about how Daniel Jones and quarterback situation, at least for the Giants, I think you could almost say, you know, going into New York football this year with the Giants and Jets being, you know, two big teams that are heavily discussed, you know, with Daniel Jones getting that big contract, the Giants coming off a playoff spot, obviously all the Aaron Rodgers hype for the Jets. At least in the New York City area this season, I would argue Tommy DeVito has played the best quarterback for New York sports. And once again, who would have saw this coming? With 7 touchdowns, 3 picks, 92.4 QB rating, he actually just surpassed Zach Wilson's quarterback touchdown pass total this season.
He did.
And once again, who could have saw it coming? So I mean, at the very minimum, people could knock his game, and I still think, at least from what I've seen out of Tommy, I think that he still has a problem in terms of taking sacks, you know, not getting the ball out quick enough. But let's face it, Daniel Jones in the league for 5 years. He got sacked a ton too behind that offensive line. It's not a good line. Obviously, for a rookie quarterback, there's a lot you could nitpick, but, you know, maybe getting the ball out faster. But, I mean, outside Andrew Thomas, who do we really trust on that line right now? But, you know, the Packers game's coming up on Monday Night Football. I think that we can maybe make that competitive. I know Jordan Love has had a good run. You know, they won that big Thanksgiving game over the Lions. They're going to play the Packers on Sunday night. But at least at the very minimum, I would say at this moment, probably a more fun watching the Jets. You know, obviously the Jets had, we'll get into that later, but the Jets have had a pretty rough couple of weeks since we last had this show. But I'm rooting for Tommy. I think that I'm rallying behind this. You know, I was originally the camp of tanking, but as long as we can string together, you know, good wins, you know, maybe we can develop Tommy into something because, you know, you never think you're going to get that of an undrafted free agent quarterback, although a lot of rookie quarterbacks have started in the NFL this season. But, you know, actually, seems as of right now, he's kind of outplaying Bryce Young, but obviously the Panthers just fired Frank Reich, so maybe we'll see that turn around. But love what I've seen so far. Like I said, it's a really fun story. The Giants defense is continuing to be dominant in this stretch. You know, they were able to shut down the Patriots at 7 points. So the Patriots are a dumpster fire in and of themselves. They're going to land Caleb Williams or Drake May. It seems like they always play well against Washington. So, you know, those are 2 games I think even at this point you saw the realistic chance that they could win. Obviously, you didn't see it being because of Tommy DeVito, but once again, we'll see what happens in a couple of weeks, but all I can say is it's a really fun story, and I'm glad that in the season of a lot of, you know, disappointment, we at least have this going for us.
You know, and it's just fun now. It's just a little. I mean, you know, I know it's just been
like
2 weeks. It's just
gestures,
we're having fun. You know,
Like,
the fact that this guy, his mom, still makes his bed and he lives with his
That's
parents.
crazy.
Like it's just. I mean,
That's
it's just a
nuts.
good story, and it's just fun to
At least from
see.
what I've seen, I feel like the team was really rallying behind them.
Right,
You see
exactly,
you see Isaiah Hodgins even doing the hand gesture. You see Saquon Barkley calling them Tommy Cutlets. I mean, it's just a fun atmosphere that he's bringing back to this team, and it really wasn't there, at least in the first few weeks of the season. But, you know, that's really a lot of times what a team needs, just a fun story, a fun, you know, spark, and that's what DeVito's done. I don't know what the future holds for him, but at the very minimum, you could say that he has provided a spark for this Giants team.
I mean, when you look at this whole Giants season as a whole, I mean, if I was thinking about this this morning, you're seeing a similar run. I'm going to compare this to the Josh Dobbs run from the Cardinals a little bit, because you're seeing a guy who you didn't think would be a starter, not really go out there and win you some football games, go out there and, well, be somewhat successful. I mean, Tommy DeVito has looked, from my eyes, very solid, but I mean, if you had to like break this down, and this is how I broke it down, if you had to see the best half, I mean, the best, most complete game, and I'm not shying away from this, the most complete game out of any New York quarterback this year. I mean, granted, Zach Wilson's game against the Eagles is still top for me, despite him looking semi-bad, like looking somewhat inconsistent at certain times. And you could argue the defense has carried him. But the
reason the Eagles victory was because of the defense.
Absolutely.
They were great in that game.
But you got to also consider this. Like, you could argue Kansas City could be up there from Zach Wilson because he looked better in the game.
I mean, KC,
I get compared to
you know, sure, obviously he was able to get the win, but Zach Wilson only had 186 yards.
That's the difference. That's the difference. So if I had to pick a game, the most complete game, if I had to pick the best half of any quarterback this year, it's Daniel Jones against the
Oh
Cardinals
yeah,
in the second
absolutely.
half.
That was like the only highlight of Daniel Jones this season.
And that we watched that game together. That game was nuts. So the New York quarterbacks as a whole this year have been an absolute mess. And the Jets have been no exception. But what we're seeing from Tommy DeVito is you're playing. This is how I'll put it. Daniel Jones, to me, when you really look back at it, played not to lose. So you saw him hold on to the ball more. And that's one of the big
always been my
differences.
biggest knock on, because the first couple of seasons of Daniel Jones, his rookie year, if you remember, he threw 24 touchdown passes. He
Yes.
almost broke the rookie touchdown record. But yeah, obviously with the turnovers being a question, Daniel Jones, at least even last year, turned to a more conservative style of play, which is why I referenced that throw in that Patriots game where Tommy DeVito stepped up in the pocket, threw downfield to Jalen Hyatt on a 3rd and 16. I am almost 100% confident if Daniel Jones in that situation, he is dumping it off to the running back. He is not taking a shot.
100%.
Pressure coming on.
100%.
That's the big difference I'm seeing here. And obviously, look, I think maybe you could still salvage them, but I think people who are just blind to defend Daniel Jones, you see Tyrod Taylor and you see Tommy DeVito playing with these weapons, the same offensive line people told you that are so uncompetitive, and you're seeing Tyrod Taylor and Tommy DeVito have way more success. You really have to evaluate Daniel Jones. And I mean, obviously the conservative play call is a problem, but also I think it's just a matter of, Taylor and DeVito are more aggressive. And ultimately, when you're playing the quarterback position in the NFL, you have to take some shots.
I agree with that. So let me ask you guys real quick before we go into the Jets. Has Tommy DeVito saved some jobs in the New York Giants this season? Or first of all, do you think jobs were on the line when the Giants were 2-8? Did you think jobs like a Brian Dable or Wing Martindale?
Absolutely.
You
not
didn't
Brian
think
Dable.
they were on the
line?
No,
Brian Dable was not. The only one I would say is Mike Kafka.
Yes.
I think Mike Kafka was.
Yes.
Because Mike Kafka is the play caller here. Listen, I think that Brian Dable is a better match to call the plays, but I think that Mike Kafka's job could have possibly been on the line. But that's another topic too I didn't even get into. There were reports before the game how Brian Dable and Wink Martindale are having tension.
Yes.
Now, those reports seem to be kind of played down a little bit by Brian Dable, but if that is actually the truth, that would be a devastating blow because Wink Martindale is by far the best assistant on this team. And I think that he should stay going forward because the defense has been by far the best group on this team. But, in terms of job security, like I said before, Brian Dable should not be fired, going based off last season. A lot of things have went wrong for this team. I don't think he was the problem in the first place. And I think that being able to recharge next season, maybe with a different quarterback under center, maybe with a guy we've already seen, who knows? I think this team can rebound.
I mean, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, look, yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely keeping with Wink Martindale. Brian Dable, listen, I just think even the fact that he was brought here from a system that developed a really good quarterback and right with the Buffalo Bills and I just think especially what we've seen, right? And even though it's just been 2 games with Tommy DeVito, I don't know. I don't think Brian Dable is the problem with the Giants. I mean, I don't know if
Dable's
it's
a solution to
right.
Yes.
I just because you see on the radio, you got a lot of people like bringing that up as and I get it, right? It's their job to talk, right, bring up these
where
points.
The Giants are
and
2-8, sports writers are going to inevitably go to the coach because what else are they going to write about that the fans are going to care about?
But I think even just from like, of course, you can dive into it and you can there is plenty of reasons to show why Brian Dable's a good coach, but I just think even just seeing him there, just like how he goes about handling his business and talking about his players and just how he seems like a team, right? Like a leader of the clubhouse or sorry, the locker room, but at the same time, right, a guy who the player, right, not exactly a military general or anything to these players. I just really like the way Brian Dable goes about coaching this team. So I personally, I think he's part of the solution as well.
And how many other teams that are in that hole being 2-8, 3-8? You're seeing the Giants team have a lot of fun. At least that's what I've seen, at least from the Tommy DeVito parts. Like usually a team that in that much of a losing situation that's had that much of a disappointing year, you don't see that fun that's around that building. I think that's just a large part of Brian Dable still keeping these guys motivated to play. I think that's really the difference between him and Joe Judge, a Pat Shermer, or Ben McAdoo. Because Ben McAdoo was another guy who had huge success his first season, then it all fell apart. Ben McAdoo lost that locker room. At least from what I've seen, Brian Dable has in no way lost that locker room, which is why you can't keep that cycle going where you fire a coach every 2 years. Brian Dable has to stay for year 3.
And the fact that even being 2-8, right, they were able to regroup, like as you mentioned, and Tommy DeVito is able to come in. We're able to actually talk about a situation like Tommy DeVito, where he can come in and kind of solve all these problems and make things kind of fun again. You don't see that a lot, and I think that's really
Once again, an
that's really
undrafted
important.
free agent rookie quarterback. How often do those guys have success in the league? It's remarkable, especially a local guy too. He turns down more money from the Commanders and the Patriots, and then beats them with his hometown team.
That's fun.
You can't put a price on that. That's an unbelievable story.
Yeah. Yeah, it was that second game that he beat them, right? It was the second one that he played.
Yes.
The second game against the Commanders that he beat them.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean that was when we really learned about Tommy DeVito, and when he came out, that was a great game from him. But
yeah, Chris, I didn't ask you. You also agree DeVito should start going forward over Tyrod Taylor down the stretch?
Yeah. Listen, listen. I like Tyrod Taylor too. I think he's a good quarterback, a good backup quarterback.
Absolutely.
But I just think, you're talking about the future here, and I think the fact is Daniel Jones, when he comes back, because they have made it clear that it seems like Daniel Jones will be the starting quarterback, of course, unless something happens in the draft, wait and see there. But it seems like if not, that if nothing changes quarterback wise, Daniel Jones is going to be here next year, and I think if that's the case, I don't see why you would want to pay Tyrod Taylor the money that he will rightfully deserve. That he rightfully deserves if you can get a similar production from Tommy DeVito.
Yeah, because if there's if you're not going to draft a quarterback in the draft, I see Tommy DeVito being the long-term answer, a backup quarterback, a guy who you can rely on to hold the ship for a couple games, because that's what he's doing right now.
Yeah, so I like what I'm seeing from Tommy. I would like to see more from him. I want this legend to die in and of itself. If it does, I mean, who knows? But I don't want it to be that we bench him. Right, because again, there's really no future coming with Tyrod Taylor, even though I do like what I see from him as well.
I'm a big Tyrod Taylor.
I am too. I think I like what I see from him a lot. I think
it sucks for him too, because it seems like he's always in this situation. He's always in a situation where he should have a starting job, but it just ultimately doesn't happen. Obviously, with the Chargers, with the Texans, now with the Giants. I hate to see it for him. I love what he's done for us so far, but it's the fact of the matter is he's a 34-year-old age and injury prone quarterback, and that's just the nature of the business.
And I think Tommy DeVito as. I mean, again, I really like Tyrod Taylor a lot too, but the truth is, I mean, he wasn't being talked about like Tommy DeVito has been, like, because Tommy DeVito is really the way he's played against the Commanders and in this game against the Patriots. I mean, there's a reason. It's not when he came in against the Jets, the fact that his name was Tommy DeVito and he's this Italian kid from North Jersey.
I mean, in a way,
it was funny, but now it's like seriously fun.
In a way,
it's
almost like a lot of Giants fans can kind of see themselves in him.
Just being like, but what I'm trying to say is, when I watched that Jets Giants game, I was like crying, laughing, because it was just like this guy, random dude, Tommy DeVito. I've never seen this guy before. Comes in, but now it's like, it's a serious thing, right?
This is an NFL quarterback,
right? And
he's capable of playing at an NFL level, which I never thought I would have said a couple weeks ago.
The example we were talking about is Jeremy Lin, right? Obviously the Linsanity run with the Knicks, right? But that seems to always be brought up, right? In any situation in life, when you like something, there's just a great little stretch for a short period of time. But this kind of seems like it has similar, similar elements to that, and I mean, I think we got a real quarterback here who can be a backup for quite some time and cost you a lot less money. So
only making $750,000 right now.
That's a steal.
I like Tyrod Taylor. I think he can get a job somewhere else. I think there definitely are places.
100% a market for him. He's a great backup quarterback.
But Tommy DeVito for this New York Giants team, I think he has to be the guy moving forward.
I like that. We'll quickly talk about the other New York team, because why not? The New York Jets played the Miami Dolphins on Black Friday. And I think the less said about this game, the better. The New York Jets have benched Zach Wilson again and replaced him with Tim Boyle, who I thought was the worst option they could have gone with, and they went with him. And he played just as how I would expect. Turnovers, mistakes with the ball. Granted, he only had one interception, but a lot of his decision-making, if you watch that game, not awe-inspiring at all. I mean, I talked about on my podcast on Monday, the way they were using Breece Hall, he's going to leave now. Because, like, how they're using Breece Hall, 7 carries for Breece Hall. How do you expect this man to possibly do anything? 7 carries? Yikes. I mean, the less said about that part, the better. Garrett Wilson caught a touchdown, which, hooray. But Tim Boyle, not it. The New York Jets play the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday, which should be a fun one because no one wants to win that game, I don't think. I mean, the Falcons, they played the Saints, and Desmond Ridder's their starting quarterback, a guy who I like still. I just don't know what to think. So let me ask you guys, based on what you've seen from the entire New York Jets season so far, your starting quarterback against the Falcons should be who? We'll start with you, Colin.
It is 100% Trevor Siemian. And the reason why I say this is because Trevor Siemian has had experience starting at the NFL level being a quarterback. See, for me, it's tough to go back to Zach Wilson at this point because I think you're going to get a similar result. And if you're in a situation you're going to have to bench him again, that's just going to make things worse. I think Trevor Siemian always deserves a shot instead of Tim Boyle. Tim Boyle was not successful in Detroit. But people are quick to forget, listen, we know that Trevor Siemian was a starter for the Broncos after Peyton Manning retired. He had a couple up and down seasons there. But the last time, he actually got a couple of good reps in there was in 2021 for the Saints. He started 4 games, had 11 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. Tim Boyle was not a guy who looked like he had belonged on the NFL field. But in the past with Trevor Siemian, we have seen him, take over and weather the storm for teams. Now, my big problem with the Jets, and I think the reason why they find themselves in a lot of the holes they deal with this moment is because, it's obviously not their fault because they imagine Aaron Rodgers would be the quarterback this season. But Aaron Rodgers going down, see, what the Jets did to me is something very similar to what the Buccaneers did when they got Tom Brady. They really kind of, appeased Tom, got a lot of his friends, and they brought over Rob Gronkowski, all these guys. The Jets went for the exact same sort of blueprint, but getting Alan Lazard, he has been awful. Getting Nathaniel Hackett, he has been an awful OC. Getting Tim Boyle, just because, he was friends with Aaron Rodgers, and that's the reason why he got that start. He was also awful. You're kind of seeing the reverse effect that 2021 Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, because obviously the Buccaneers team went on to win the Super Bowl, and the Jets are now very likely going to miss the playoffs for now, what is it, the 11 for 12 straight seasons? 12 straight seasons.
I think now.
Now, Aaron Rodgers could come back. We heard his practice window get clear, but at this point, once again, what's the point unless you're going to start winning games? But if winning games is what the Jets want to do at this moment, to me, Trevor Siemian is the guy. Because at least in terms of numbers, even in 2016, we're going back to 2016 here, but he threw 18 touchdown passes, 10 picks. He's at least been an NFL quarterback, and you really can't say that about Tim Boyle. So, yeah, if you're not going to go back to Zach Wilson, it's 100% Trevor Siemian to me.
Yeah, I agree also. And I know, as you mentioned, going back to 2016, where that was his last one of his last full years as a true quarterback for a team. But it's the fact that he has that experience.
Being able to go in for Drew Brees, he had
that was crazy.
Right, yeah, right. So, yeah, he's got the more experience, and I think that's what the Jets need. The Jets need some type of experience at that position. And, both guys are actually both kind of fairly local, right? Both from Connecticut, originally.
Trevor Siemian, from Danbury, Connecticut.
Danbury, Connecticut. Shout out to Danbury, Connecticut. Right? It's not that far from here, actually. And no, it's probably like a 40-minute drive. You'd be there.
That's not bad.
Yeah, and it's a nice little place, and local kid, and some good storylines from him in his career. I don't see why not. He's there. Zach Wilson. I don't know. I don't know if you touched on that really. How do you feel? What did you think about Zach Wilson?
Hey, kind of glossed over
let me
that
hold on. I'm going to touch on this in a second because I was waiting for for the answer for this question.
It's Trevor Siemian.
So you're going Trevor Siemian. So here's my ideology. First of all, Zach Wilson, my guy.
Is he your guy?
I felt like they benched him in the wrong game.
Well, it was a pretty bad performance.
No, so you have to take into account that how he got.
I think it should have happened a while ago. Personally.
Yes, no, the Buffalo game as a whole was a complete disaster. Possibly considering the fact that I would have fired Nathaniel Hackett on play 2 of the game. It was that bad, and I knew it was going to be bad. The Jets have not won in Buffalo in an eternity, it feels like. And the theme continues here. The starting quarterback that I would have in this game against the Atlanta Falcons would be Zach Wilson for one reason.
Oh, boy.
There's one reason. Trevor Siemian. First of all, for those who don't know, Trevor Siemian has played for the Jets before.
Yeah.
He played 1 game and tore his ACL. So,
rough break.
Yeah, no, I think that was the Lions game from 2019 when we lost. It was the revenge game after Sam Darnold beat the Lions the year before, I believe. But my problem here is that offensive line cannot block a toothpick. So I really think you need someone who can move. Trevor Siemian's not been one to move in the pocket very much. So I would think, even though the Jets would turn the ball over about 3 more times with Zach Wilson than Trevor Siemian, despite him being benched, It should not be Tim Boyle. And I have a feeling it's going to be Tim Boyle, and I'm going to turn that game off in about 9
Yeah, and
seconds.
there's absolutely no way you can choose Tim Boyle after that.
They're
It
going to
has
do
be
it, and it's going to
Simeon.
cost Saleh his job. If the
So that's
Jets...
another thing. Do you think Saleh should be fired?
Partially. Part of me says yes, and part of me says no. Because, like, it's a whole what-ifs question.
Nathaniel Hackett has to be gone regardless.
Yes.
It's just, I mean, unless you just really
Yes.
want to still appease Aaron Rodgers, but it comes like if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt again, you're just gonna be in the exact same situation.
Exactly. And the problem with the Jets right now for me is that you said it very well. They committed all in on Aaron Rodgers, like how the Bucs did. And you brought that up. That's a phenomenal point. And I'll continue with that. Allen Lazard was a healthy scratch in the last game. He just wasn't dressed. They did not dress this man. Tim Boyle is mid. I think that's an overstatement. I'll word it better for you guys. Tim Boyle is bad.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, there you go. I think that's the easiest way before I can go on a rant is Tim Boyle is bad. Who else did they bring in? Nathaniel Hackett? I mean, the dude barely beat the Broncos when they were bad.
Because
So
like even when he got that job in Denver, right? And like we heard that obviously you all remember that tension between Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy. The reason for that
Yes.
is because Aaron called all the plays at the line of scrimmage. So when he was having all those MVP seasons, it wasn't because Nathaniel Hackett was calling incredible plays. It was Aaron Rodgers reading the defenses and calling the plays for himself.
great point.
So once he gets playing calling duties in Denver and the Jets, it's a disaster because he can't call plays. He's not good at that job. It was mostly Aaron Rodgers, which is why even if Aaron Rodgers is healthy, you wouldn't be complaining about Nathaniel Hackett right now. It's just that without Aaron Rodgers, he is nothing.
I totally agree. And let me just talk about Zach real quick. Zach has made some bad decisions with the ball. He's made some great throws. And I think this is the way I'll word this. The inconsistency, like you don't know what version of Zach Wilson you're going to get because of how drastic both versions are. I'm going to say there's 3 versions. One of them is a turnover machine. We've seen that before. Not really this year, but in previous seasons. I'm calling it the Daniel Jones clone version, which is the second one. And we've seen that more often because he has not wanted to throw the ball down the field.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. And then version 3, which is the acrobatics against Kansas City, going out, making daring throws, making plays with his feet. We saw that, I think, last year 3 times total. And this year, I'm going to say we saw it twice. The fact that it's so inconsistent, he's the reason he's benched, and it's the reason I do not think he will start another game for the Jets, barring another injury. Do I want to see him start a game? Absolutely. He's the best quarterback option they have with the offensive line that they have. If the offensive line was better, I would totally agree with you, Trevor Siemian. But the fact that Trevor Siemian just does not move in the pocket very much.
I mean, still, he's a veteran. I'm sure he knows when to get the ball
But
out.
like
avoid
the
taking
Jets are
hits.
going to allow, despite the Falcons' pass rush being terrible, the Jets are going to allow 3 sacks at minimum. Zach Wilson's the only one who can move out of the pocket. So if he can actually make like a competent decision, I would have gone with him. But I think who do I want to start and who should start are 2 different answers. Who do I want to see them start? It's Zach Wilson because he's not because I love the man, but like watching him play more than the other 2. And that's actually another great point. He'll at least like go out and make a good, try to make something out of nothing. The other 2 wouldn't do that. So that's the main difference. If you want to compare Zach Wilson to Tim Boyle and Trevor Siemian, the difference is Zach Wilson will try and go make something out of nothing.
I just think, what kind of message is that to send to your fans, though? Like, if you're just like, okay, we're gonna bench Zach.
Woody Johnson's
now
their
we're gonna put him
owner.
Because
right
look,
back
they
in.
benched Zach last year. They benched him again this year. What does it say to go back to him? It seems
Exactly.
like you can't burn that bridge so many times.
To
and
be
just keep
fair,
going
though,
back to it.
I mean, Woody Johnson's just messed up entirely. I'm because he's gonna fire Saul at the end of the year, and everyone's going to want to send this man to the guillotine.
I feel almost like I want to see Saleh coach Aaron Rodgers, but it's just once again that's a problem with defense coaches. They can be great on defense, be great at calling defenses, but if you don't get that offensive coordinator position right, you're in trouble. We see that
Absolutely.
in Buffalo right now, right? People are starting to talk about Sean McDermott on the hot seat. For years, people thought Sean McDermott was a phenomenal head coach. I think he still is a very good head coach, but listen, the offense is great under Brian Dable. That's really what was the strength of those Buffalo teams, and Sean McDermott is viewed as one of the best coaches in the league because of that. if you're a defensive coordinator, you need to make sure you have the offense right. You need to make sure you have a good offensive coordinator. And obviously, if you have Nathaniel Hackett running the offense, you're not going to have a lot of help from your offense if you're a defensive coordinator or head coach.
I 100% agree with that. I mean, and this is I heard this on the radio on Tuesday. They compared So remember, at the same time, these two, Mike McDaniel and Robert Saleh, I believe, are coordinators at the same time when they were with the Niners, because then it was D'Amico Ryans who came after Saleh. Shout out D'Amico Ryans. He is a phenomenal head coach. I am riding the D'Amico Ryans train because he's doing something special, and I wish that's what happened with Saleh, and it's not happening. The difference between Mike McDaniel and Robert Saleh is that you see, and you saw it on the Black Friday game, Mike McDaniel showing this is what we saw from Saleh last year, which made me think that he could be semi-decent. You see Mike McDaniel showing energy, trying to like motivate his team. Robert Saleh, all I see from shots from now is just his arms crossed.
Well, I mean, then again, compared to
Like,
D'Amico
why?
Ryans, how much more different do you think the situation would be, though, if D'Amico Ryans had Zach Wilson and Robert Saleh had C.J. Stroud? I mean,
Nathaniel Hackett would have ruined C.J. Stroud.
Well, yeah, but I'm just like hypothetical, say like Nathaniel Hackett isn't there. Say Robert Saleh ended up with C.J. Stroud and just not Nathaniel Hackett as his OC.
I still think, I don't know. That's a great question. One, I think Zach Wilson would be how I thought CJ Stroud was going to be, and that is not great because of that offensive line and the group around him. It just isn't very good. The problem, I think this is why Zach Wilson's getting a lot of hate for this, is because of the weapons that he has around him. One, aren't performing, and that's multiple reasons why that's not happening. And two, he's not using his weapons correctly. He's not going out making long throws to a Garrett Wilson. He didn't use McCole Hardman, and now McCole Hardman's playing great in Kansas City, so that's the annoying part, but that's the difference. CJ Stroud in Houston is using his weapons right. He's throwing the ball down the field, making these daredevil-ish throws to make him one of, I think, the most liked QBs in the league right now that's still healthy. The Texans are doing something special. And granted, their run game has been invisible. Dameon Pierce has not been very good this year. But CJ Stroud's numbers, I haven't seen that from a rookie quarterback in a long time. I mean, you see how bad Bryce Young is, which, by the way, they're comparing him to the Trevor Lawrence rookie year. I don't get that. What CJ Stroud is doing is, I think this is the first time in a long time where we've seen the number 2 overall pick as a quarterback look good. You see, from when I've started watching the draft and paying attention to it more. You had Trubisky, and then you had Wilson, and now you have this.
I mean, Carson Wentz.
Third time. That's another one. I was going to say third time's a charm, but fourth time's a charm. You can go with that idea because CJ Stroud is on another level right now. He will win Rookie of the Year. What I really wished happened was Anthony Richardson would still be healthy, and we'll be discussing CJ Stroud versus Anthony Richardson because I think Anthony Richardson,
Tommy DeVito, if you want,
because Anthony Richardson. Look at the Colts. The Colts are 6-5 or whatever the hell they are. Like, they're on another level as well. Imagine what they would be with Anthony Richardson. They could be an 8-win team, I think, at this point in the season with the Colts. That's unreal.
Shane Steichen has done a great job there.
Oh, absolutely. Granted, you can make an argument that the Colts have played absolutely no one during their win streak. And that's partially true. I mean, they've gone out and beat the Patriots, and they beat a couple other bad teams that I'm drawing a blank on. But what the Indianapolis Colts have done is you take something out of nothing. And they've used a quarterback who has experience in Gardner Minshew and used him to his strengths. Now, granted, the last game, he didn't do very much. Jonathan Taylor is finally playing out of his mind. So the Indianapolis Colts are doing something right. But unless we wanted to keep going NFL, we have some other sports to talk about, gentlemen. You want to let's move it over a little bit. We're going to briefly talk about the recent news from these guys' 2 favorite teams in the NBA, and then we'll go into some quick MLB free agency updates. Actually, unless you want to go MLB free agency first, Colin. No. Let's go NBA first. So we'll start with, first of all, I just want to give my 1 minute of my own sense from the NBA in-season tournament. You didn't think they'd mess it up. I think the NBA in-season tournament messed up one crucial part that makes, because I know they've tried to compare it to like a European soccer style model. Is that right? That is right?
Maybe.
So yeah, the one problem that makes the European, like the Champions League, let's compare to that. The reason the Champions League is so good is because they do a draw for every knockout round. Why didn't they do that? Granted, you can say like, oh, to keep it in conference, you could do a draw in
I
conference.
don't think that's what makes the Champions League good for soccer.
It makes it so much different,
It's just
though.
that it really again, that's the point I brought up a few weeks ago about the in-season tournament is that it can't work in America because we have a playoffs already.
Exactly.
That's our in-season tournament, except it happens at the end of the season. Think of right the way the leagues work in soccer is that you win the league if you're the number 1 seed. That's
Exactly.
how it works. You have the best record.
Exactly.
That's why there are draws to everyone who really doesn't understand why there are ties in soccer. That's the reason. It's because these bad teams, there's no tanking. There's no getting a good draft pick if you're the last seed. You get demoted and you fall
relegated,
into
yeah.
irrelevancy. And there have been examples in soccer history of teams being like just diminishing, not existing anymore because they didn't have enough money or enough, just wins or anything or fans to stay relevant. So that's why
Exactly.
there's draws. That's why there are in-season tournaments. It's chances for these teams to stay relevant. You don't need that in American sports like basketball, football, baseball, and hockey because we already have. We already have a better format. I like what we have. We have 30 teams in relatively large metropolitan areas all around the country, and the NHL's case in Canada as well. And obviously the other sports have some. Toronto has a couple teams as well. And that's it. And there's the playoff format. If you finish last, you get at least a good chance in football, right? You are guaranteed the number 1 overall pick. Right. In other sports, you have a good chance at that, and you have a chance to get relevant or become relevant again. I don't think that you need this. It really, to me, it's just not very. I really haven't been paying attention to the in-season tournament personally. I am happy that listen. Anytime the Knicks win, I'm that's cool for me as a Knicks fan. But it's just like the fact that they win the in-season tournament, it doesn't feel as special or as important as the fact that they are what they're doing in the regular season. Currently, they've lost their past 2 games against the Wolves and the Suns. I care more about that than I do about the in-season tournament clinch. I just think it to me, it just doesn't have that same feel. And maybe it's gonna take time. Maybe again, that's how I am with these new rules in sports. Is I'm not gonna I'm gonna spread what I don't exactly see eye to eye with, but I'm not gonna completely denounce this tournament or forget about it. We'll give it time. We'll see what the champion. We'll see what it's like. Maybe we'll get used to it.
To me, because the big other move that Adam Silver made was the play-in tournament. I feel that's
right.
I think that's worked better for the NBA because the incentive with the play-in tournament is you want those teams that are hovering around the 11-12 range to still compete near the end of the season, so they're not just tanking for a draft pick. Because so many teams, when they're trying to go for the ping pong balls, get the number 1 overall pick, they often just bottom out. And Adam Silver obviously wanted those teams to compete for the playoffs. Now, the problem with the in-season tournament, at least in terms of trying to get those to compete, is you're asking for more competitive games in November and December. And I mean, that's not really a time as to which you would really have those concerns. I mean, sure, maybe you might get a little bit more effort on a Tuesday or a Thursday night or a Friday night from, an NBA team because, there's this extra, $500,000 you can win. But really, that's not a big incentive to them. But like Chris said, it really just has to take time. Now, we'll kind of get a little bit more of a bigger sense to how much of a scale this is on when this eventually moves to Vegas, for the Final Four after this round happens here. But, I mean, yeah, there's definitely, good teams made it in. We got the Lakers, the Suns, the Kings, Pelicans, Bucks, Knicks, Pacers, and Celtics. You got a mix of teams who obviously are, expected to compete for a championship. A couple teams who are going to hover around that playoff range. But I don't think we'll really see the full scale of it until we see it get completed. So I think that's kind of when we have the full, discussion on what the in-season tournament looks like. But like Chris said, I would care more about losing 2 games and just winning 1 in-season tournament game because ultimately that's what you're working for. You're working for the playoffs. Sure, you can bring up the example of the Knicks. I'm sure they're glad they like the fact that they got in, but maybe you would rather win some games that are out. You want to also make sure you still win games that are outside of the in-season tournament so you can advance to the playoffs. But yeah, we'll see how it works out. We're going to see just in a couple days, actually, the quarterfinals. See how it goes from there.
I mean, my other one point I want to bring up about this, and this is like a quick thought if you guys want to touch on this, was teams running up the score for the point difference. And I know I was looking at a video with Billy Donovan and Joe Mazzulla from the Celtics and the Bulls when that happened. I was just laughing the entire time because in theory, being a former player and seeing some of this type of stuff unfold, it's unethical. some of the stuff that some of these teams are trying to do. It's completely unethical. And you see Andre Drummond get fouled on purpose for no reason to shoot free throws. He missed both of them. Celtics go down and score again. Something like that should not be involved in the NBA at all.
Well, that's just another opinion. You can say that's a bad part about the in-season tournament.
That's what I'm trying to get at. Is like that's the one part I don't like. I wish they had better tiebreakers for this. If they found a way to do a better tiebreaker than points, now I don't know how they would do that, but just some of this nonsense doesn't belong in the game at all. My main example was Celtics Bulls when players were getting intentionally fouled. They freaking Celtics go down and score. You saw that in a couple of other games from a couple of days ago as well. So really, and I'll just end it on this. It doesn't belong in the game. It's unethical, as I've said. And I'm disgusted watching something like that, especially in an in-season tournament. So like you said, to most fans, I don't think really matters that much. You guys want to touch on that real quick? Unless you want to go into your teams.
It's a more interesting watch for, like I said, a Tuesday or a Friday night in the NBA. But ultimately, if you're going to ask me, would I rather my team win the NBA Cup or go to the playoffs? I'm always going to choose the playoffs. I mean, unless we see the NBA Cup really get elevated to be in this great award that a team will win. Because, like we could even have a team like, the Pelicans, right? The Pelicans would go win the NBA Cup. Now, do we think the Pelicans are going to be a title contender in May and June? No.
Absolutely not.
So, that's really where the divide kind of happens. It's fun. It can be fun for a fan base, who are having a decent season. Maybe they can get it, put on a national because, this game's going to be in Las Vegas in a big stadium on ABC, national TV. It can be fun for a team like the Pelicans to go out there and win it, but really it doesn't matter that much in the grand scheme of the season.
I mean, let's go into your teams now real quick. We'll go back to Colin with the San Antonio Spurs, who've really been in a rough patch recently. Break it down for us.
Well, it's a 12-game losing streak. Victor Wembanyama is still putting up some pretty solid numbers. He's averaging 19 right now. There's starting to be a lot of debate, though, that Chet Holmgren should win the Rookie of the Year over Victor Wembanyama, which I still disagree with because, although while Chet Holmgren has done some good things, I still think that if you swap the situations, I think that Wembanyama would still be doing better because, the Thunder have been great so far this season. Currently, I believe the second seed in the Western Conference. It's a great team all around. Chet Holmgren's is another piece they have on there to add on to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and all those other pieces they have in Oklahoma City. In terms of the losing streak for the Spurs, it seems like it's either they'll have a lead, in the first half and then eventually go on to blow it. We saw that happen in the game against the Raptors, even against the Kings. They were very competitive in the in-season tournament, but then they ended up running out of gas later on in the game. That's really just a factor of being a young team. But once again, I still mention this point every time we do a Spurs segment. It's just that Jeremy Sohan cannot keep on being the point guard for this team. I understand that Greg Popovich wants to, develop his potential and lock him on defense because ideally having a 6'9" point guard who can play great defense would be great for the Spurs. But if it's gonna hinder Victor Wembanyama's development, it cannot happen. I think that Trey Jones is the point guard going forward, and I think the Spurs will win more games if they eventually realize this. Now, obviously, you weren't expecting a lot. You're hoping to maybe go for a playing spot for San Antonio, but being 3-14 is not the start you wanted to the season. I mean, they're 2-0 against the Phoenix Suns and 1-14 against everyone else. So figure that one out.
How is that possible?
They have almost not won a game in a month. I believe the last one was about November 1st or 2nd, somewhere around that range. So, obviously not what you wanted, but, it's still a young team. There's still a lot of promise out of Victor Wembanyama and some of the other young pieces. So you could easily turn it around, but still yet to be seen. Hopefully I get to see a win soon.
Chris.
Yeah, and with the Knicks, I feel like it's just kind of been some more of the same. They're 10-7 in the regular season. As we mentioned, they just clinched the NBA in-season tournament where they're playing the Bucks. I don't think they'll win that, but it's cool that they got there and they had a nice win against the Hornets the other night. I think as for stories, obviously we know Jalen Brunson. He's been amazing. I mean, he's averaging, I want to say, roughly like 24 points and averaging like 5 assists. Look, he's been a good game. He's been playing a good game for the Knicks. Over this season, he's been fantastic. I think definitely their best player. Randall has also been doing pretty good. I mean, he's got a couple of games in some big spots where he's averaged, or he got around 20. I think he got 25, dropped 25 points a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of games ago rather. But even though they've dropped some of those games, like they dropped, I think a close game against, I think it was the Suns the other night and the Timberwolves, right? As I said earlier. I think as long as Randall is right and RJ who's also right, right, my favorite player on the team, has had a good year, overall solid season, and I think Jalen Brunson, right, if he can continue to be the star that he is, I think the wins will come, and I think they can definitely make the playoffs, and I like I like what's going on with the Knicks, but obviously for the in-season tournament, I don't know how much longer they'll be in that.
I like that. Well, with 15 minutes left, I want to give your guys quick thoughts on this one. And we're going to head to the diamond. We're going to go with the Yankees real quick because recently, from what I've heard around the hot stove, was the Yankees talking specifics on potential Juan Soto trade? What? Colin, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, he'd be great in New York. And I think that, there's a lot of talk over whether you give up a Clark Schmidt or a Michael Caine. I think that if you're able to lock Soto up, because obviously, the contracts expire, and if you can sign him, I mean, that's kind of, he could be what you hope Giancarlo Stanton would be, at least at this point for the Yankee offense. We talk so much about how we need an outfielder, because realistically, look at the depth chart right now for this Yankee outfield, especially we've been trading away even Jake Bowers to Milwaukee. There's not a lot there. So you need to get more outfielders this offseason in that lineup. Obviously, getting a superstar like Juan Soto, who's still young, you can sign him to a big contract. I think it'd be great for the Yankees front office. Now, when it comes down to, like I said, what you give up, that's where you're going to start having a lot of debates because, first of all, whenever you make a big move such as this one, you have to, evaluate, are we going to sign this guy long term? What's the terms of that going to look like? You kind of want to have that almost figured out before you make a move like that. Now, if I'm the Yankees, obviously, they've made so many moves towards the pitching, right? Because they're going to hear a lot about Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Should they sign him? Obviously, their big move last offseason was Carlos Rodon. But to me, and I've always said it, I think that's still the problem with the Yankees getting them over the hump is the lineup. And I think that getting a young left-handed bat, which keep in mind the Yankees don't have a lot of left-handed bats in that lineup, like Juan Soto, to potentially for all those next couple of years go alongside Anthony Volpe, who should get better offensively, Jason Dominguez, who will come back eventually later on in the season, maybe can continue off the offensive stretch he had when he first got called up. I think having that hitting core of Jason Dominguez, Anthony Volpe, Aaron Judge, and maybe Juan Soto, I think that looks great for the future for the Yankees lineup.
Yeah, listen, I think if you're the Yankees, I personally think you absolutely have to make this trade happen.
To me, I think it's more important than Yamamoto.
Absolutely, because the Yankees have needed that for a while. They need that star left-handed power bat. Soto is just he seems like and I think it goes to show, right? And I think my anger towards the Cashman presser was more of how he came across. And yeah, he did, go a little far. He was being a little irrational, or quite a bit irrational. But the fact, just I think it's the fact that he is the GM of the team, and he's the one, the number. He should be, more stubborn than any fan when it comes to taking responsibility or being angry about how the season went. It seems like he was trying to find the positives in this season. That seemed like it didn't really have many. But when you look at it, right, and the fact that when you see what Juan Soto does for this lineup, if they do get him, it does show you this is still a team that I think can go to the playoffs next year and be a good team. I think yes, they did have injuries, and Aaron Judge is amazing, and maybe who knows? I don't think Carlos Rodon is as bad as we saw him, this season, and I think Nestor Cortez is a lot better than what we saw this past year. And I think I think they will add. And I think you add a Juan Soto to this lineup, I think it makes it 10 times better. They need it. The only problem is the Padres are gonna, as they should, they're gonna ask for what they're gonna demand a lot, mostly on the pitching side of things, where the Yankees seem to have a lot of great young pitchers.
Now, when it comes down to a Clark Schmidt and the Michael Caine, would you give up both? Would you give up one? How do you feel about those two?
I would not even blink when it comes to Clark Schmidt. I like Clark Schmidt a lot. Michael King is more because it feels like they've just spent so much time, and I guess Clark Schmidt as well. But it feels like for a while we've just been waiting for the Schmidt trade to happen. I think Michael King is more proven as a piece that could be on this pitching staff, whether it's as a relief pitcher or as a starter, as we saw him dominate as a starter. I think he's more proven, right? He's older. I think I guess I'm more of a Michael King guy than a Clark Schmidt guy. I still think Clark Schmidt can be great, though. I think he's a great reclamation project for a team like the Padres. But really what I'm talking about, the pitching, is more along the lines of like the Drew Thorpes, the Chase Hamptons, where they're both very good. Drew Thorpe especially. I'm a big Drew Thorpe guy. I really don't want to give him up, but I'm sorry. If you can get a year of Juan Soto, the player that he is, stays healthy. He's not the best defender. He's not the biggest speedster in the world, but you know what? He's also not awful in those two assets of the game.
But also,
Has
listen,
its
like,
facets of the game.
if you're in another playoff series against, say, Houston or one of those teams, Juan Soto has so much success coming up in big
Right.
moments that
That's
he's
against the
a
Astros. Yeah.
big-time player who made big-time plays. I mean, he was 19 years old, dominating in the World Series. How
You
often do you
need
see a guy
that.
like that? That's special.
Exactly.
To have a guy like that in the Yankees is huge.
Right, with
Would be
the
huge.
Soto shuffle and just the really not caring your elements of his personality. You need that on this team. You need that fire, that flair that comes with him. And again, you bring him here. I hope he would like it here if he comes here. But if people are talking about, yeah, he's guaranteed to be a free agent since he's a Boris Klein. He's going to command a big contract. But if you're the Yankees and you give up that prospect haul, you got to be prepared to sign him anyway.
Yeah.
So you'll be at the top of those discussions, right? If you trade for him, you're not going to be in on him next year, then that makes no sense. But obviously, they're the Yankees; they wouldn't do that if they are going to trade for him, which I think they will make a push to. I think they will absolutely be at the top, and I think Juan Soto. You never know what could happen next year. You never know what can happen next year with whoever gets him. There's a good chance he'll be a true candidate to sign him, right? And I think he right, having played here, hopefully, right, if he comes here, he'll have the Yankees may have an edge in signing him in free agency if that happens. But I think it's about time. I think if this team, not saying they should, but they themselves, the Yankees organization, right? I always say this, they keep pushing this stuff at us. They don't want to rebuild. They want to go all in. Go all in.
Because, like, listen, Chris, the last time they made big-time spendings were obviously Garrett Cole and Carlos Rodon both pitching. They haven't made a big-time signing for a player in that lineup since Giancarlo Stanton,
Right.
and that was 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So there has to come a time where you address the lineup, and I think what better way to do it than with Juan Soto?
I mean, my quick thoughts on the Juan Soto idea is, I've heard from there's sources are saying that from rival executives think he's going to be traded, and with the MLB winter meetings starting this Sunday, I think it could happen with before our next episode. I think if there's any time a trade would happen, it'd be either the day of or the days before our next episode. Because why not do it at the winter meetings? There's possibly trades for Juan Soto. There's been ramping ups on trades for some other players. One that certainly just caught my eye. I just got a text about it. Was a Dylan Cease ramping up with trade talks from the White Sox. We've heard the Braves and the Dodgers, how much they can improve, especially with the confusing moves from the Braves, moving a guy like Mike Soroka, moving some of these other players. I think it's confusing. I liked Mike Soroka. I think he's very talented. He just gets he's injury prone.
Yeah.
Now you go for a Dylan Cease, a guy who is going to be also a free agent, I believe, in a year. Around this time next year, I believe so.
Also, Shane Bieber is also being rumored.
Shane Bieber, yeah. Glasnow would be an interesting one because Glasnow has the injury history.
But I think especially what I want to bring up now is with Glasnow, because I heard Glasnow's name and Soto, is that the New York Mets are not even having discussions with those teams, the Rays or the Padres, about Glasnow.
Good.
Or Soto, why?
Because the Mets need to address the idea that I don't know if they want to be competitive next year. Of course you want to be competitive, but do they have to be?
My question would be, what do you think the thought process was for the Luis Severino signing?
I have no idea. I have no. Now, wasn't he injured last year?
Oh yeah, and it's been his problem for years.
There you go.
But which, by the way, I think look, I don't think it's the best signing in the world, but I think 13 million. The starting pitching market is a market with not much gray area. Is not one with not much gray area. 13 million, it means nothing to the Mets for a year.
I wanted Sonny Gray very bad.
I don't think Sonny. I think that's what the Mets got to stop doing. They got to stop with the veterans on multi-year contracts. Montgomery, I think, would be perfect for them, right? Because I don't know. I don't know how old he is, but I don't think he's that old.
31 now. I don't know.
But he's a lefty. Lefties usually take some time to figure it out. Looks like he's figured it out. Big game pitcher, proven in New York. Going to be here for a long time. That's the type of move for the Mets I think they need to do with the pitching. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, at least on the Mets side of things, makes perfect sense for them because he's 25 and they have the money. And you're right, he's amazing. He's fantastic. that's a move I think they got. That's I think the moves they got to make. I think they got to go
Yeah.
more with the youth or the younger
The
pitchers,
long-term
players.
approach. That would make more sense.
Although
I like that idea.
I think the Severino, I think it's like a non-news story.
It's a trade piece. It's really what it is. Because if you want to
I
move him at the
mean,
deadline,
I
if he
don't know.
doesn't
It's
has a good season.
Yeah, I think it's kind of just like it's not going to hurt them if if he's not great, but if if he is great and you are competing, cool. If he's not, if he's great and you're not competing, you get a good trade piece. So yeah, it's over. It's a non-signing to me. I think it's all right, but I feel like some Met fans are complaining about it
I
on
don't know.
Twitter. I don't know, but I don't know. I just think all right. You're gonna. I hope what I hope the Mets are not doing is that they're not going to keep doing this, signing guys to 1-year contracts or signing these veteran pitchers. I don't think they can do this. I think they have to go more, be in on those talks. And maybe you don't have to trade the young pieces, but the signing a guy like Jordan Montgomery, other younger, even though maybe still in their late 20s, their early 30s, right? But younger pitchers compared to like the Verlanders and the Scherzers of the world, on multi-year contracts, fixing up that rotation. I think they can compete next year. But I just I don't know. I don't know about not at all being interested in Soto and Glass now. I think
'Cause,
you
like,
got to at least do your due diligence and be in on
Yeah.
those moves. And I think Soto's a guy with the money that you have, with the wanting to get younger. Soto fit this team beautifully. I don't understand how you're not even having talks with them at the
I
Padres.
think real quick to touch on it, they don't want to. Probably think they have a young core with the prospects they have, and they don't want to move any of them. Which okay, I guess. But like, do they want to be competitive now-ish and keep Pete Alonso, or do they want to be competitive in like 7 years and not have him? It's like you got to take into what he may want as well. But real quick, because we only have 4 minutes left. We're going to pick the Thursday night football game as we usually do on this show. We have the Dallas Cowboys and the Seattle Seahawks. Wow, I almost butchered that. And I did. Of course, on Amazon Prime Video. But it's an interesting game. I'll go. One of you guys want to go first?
Yeah, I guess I'll
let's
go
go.
first.
Go ahead, Chris.
The Seahawks coming into this game, right, at 6-5, right, had that tough loss on Thanksgiving to the 49ers. I mean, I think they kind of expected to lose that game, although, I mean, it was at home. And in fact, they lost the game before as well against the Rams. So it's been a tough couple of weeks for them. And then, just 2 games before that, losing to the Ravens, getting destroyed by them. It's been a rough couple of weeks for the Seattle Seahawks. They kind of come stumbling into Dallas, where they're going to be facing the Dallas Cowboys, who have been really good this season. Obviously, they're going to the playoffs at 8-3. I think this is going to be the Cowboys game. I don't. I think it's thankfully it's at least 2 good teams going against each other for the first time in a couple of weeks. But I mean, this Cowboys offense has just been amazing. I mean, just all across this season. I mean, they've just been great. I mean, is it fair to say? Is it unfair to just want to predict that this team's at least going to drop 40 tonight?
Ooh.
I mean, okay.
I get
30?
the idea. I get the idea.
30?
30 maybe.
I'll say 30. I'll be fair. I'll be fair
right.
to the Seahawks.
Man's fair.
They've been staying alive. They're a good little team, but they've dropped 40 a couple times this season. I mean, could we get that type of game where they just run away with it by halftime? I'll say my prediction, my one prediction, other than the fact that the Cowboys win, I think they'll get to 30.
At least 30. All right. What do you think, Colin?
Well, obviously, as a Giants fan, I think you very much know how much I dislike the Dallas Cowboys, how much I would very much like to pick against them here, but they're going to win the game because, I think they're going to have a lot of motivation because the big talk about the Dallas Cowboys has been they have not been a team with a winning record. But, ever since October 29th, they beat the Rams by 23 points. They had a very close loss to the Eagles where they lost by 5. They beat the Giants by 32, beat the Panthers by 23, beat the Commanders by 35. This team is absolutely rolling. This is the best that they've looked in a while, at least on offense. Like we mentioned, Seattle has been struggling. The same stretch I kind of mentioned there with the Cowboys, a 34-point loss to the Ravens, just narrowly beating Washington, losing to the Rams, getting dominated by the 49ers. The Seahawks are clearly trending down while the Cowboys are trending up. For that reason, the Dallas Cowboys are going to win tonight. And I think, like Chris said, I could either see them dropping 30. I'm going to go 34-17 Cowboys win.
I like it. By the way, when you mentioned that Rams game, Matt Stafford wasn't blind. Just as a fun note, like someone was win by 23. I think it was the Cowboys. Matt Stafford didn't play, which is a fair point. But yeah, the Seahawks defense has been very concerning for me recently, and same with the offense as well with Geno Smith.
I mean, even like Tariq Woolen's getting benched.
Yeah, that was weird. But I'm gonna go which this is probably going to mean Seattle is going to win. I'm going with Dallas as well, which we probably all just jinxed the Cowboys. Which is not the worst thing in the world. I'm expecting big things. I'm expecting big things from the ground game. I think the ground game for the Dallas Cowboys, I haven't heard about it as much. So give me the Dallas Cowboys. Tony Pollard, I'm going to go have him have the big game tonight. Him and CeeDee Lamb over 100 yards apiece. Dallas Cowboys 38. The Seattle Seahawks are going to put up a decent amount of points. So I'm going to say 38-24. High scoring affair. The first Amazon Prime game to look good all year. And on that note, that'll be the end of today's episode of Into the Stands. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you see, hit the like button down below and subscribe to WIUR, and make sure to follow us at Into the Stands on Instagram. But for Chris and Colin, I'm Robbie Basil saying so long. We'll see you guys next week. Goodbye, everyone.